citizens. They have to deal with very important daily challenges, that the buses are running on time, that the water is clean, that the schools are open, and that the cities are developing. And therefore, it was quite impressive to see that on top of all these traditional mayoral duties, they demonstrated such a strong commitment to the future of our planet, that they've been ready to work on sustainability plans, which in the case of the Covenant of Mayors from Europe always have to exceed the national ambition presented by the governments. And therefore we wanted to use this experience to showcase this example, and I was very pleased that together with Mike Bloomberg we can actually create this new global covenant of mayors, and we are putting the final touches on this new alliance on a global level, which should start to be fully operational as of 1st of January of the next year. But at the same time, I have to say that all these positive attitudes, all that achievements shouldn't be taken for granted, because we see many detractors in Europe and in the US that are aiming to rise to power and to undo what has been so arduously achieved. We have also seen that the political declarations do not suffice, that the energy or low carbon transition must move from the political level to the ground level. And this is where we should concentrate our efforts now. Of course, not everything what we discussed yesterday, not everything with what we are dealing today has such a gloomy perspective as some of the challenges I was describing at the beginning. What are the positive sides? Where the strengths of Europe and of Europe industry lies? We are very strong if it comes to the low carbon technologies. Let's just remind ourselves that EU companies hold 40% of all patents for renewable technologies. Already 9 million Europeans is working directly and indirectly in the low carbon energy industry, and we expect this number will be doubled by 2030. If we study more closely our proposals for eco-design and energy labeling policies, we expect that they would contribute to the creation of additional 800,000 jobs and would provide 54 billion euros of extra revenue for the European industry by 2020. Other eco-industries are also very important job engines, such as waste and water management and other activities linked to the protection of environment. So this transition to a low carbon and greener economy can present a goldmine for the jobs and growth. So this transition has a business sense, and this is something what we need to repeat here and again, and to get also the public perception on this note, because this would help us to overcome another challenge where we need to work better, and this is commercialization or market uptake of our low carbon and energy efficient technologies. There are huge opportunities to be taken, and I had many of the excellent examples in the labs across Europe in our universities and research institutes. We are very good at innovating, inventing, but we are slower than our global competitor in commercialization, in market uptake, and in actually using the technologies we develop here in Europe. The International Energy Agency has assessed that only for the period between now and 2030, the 2 degrees Celsius goal will need global investment in the range of $16.5 trillion US. If you look at just one country, India, in India alone there are 300 million people who currently have no direct access to the electricity. And I remember very well the visit of Prime Minister Modi at Hanover Messe was very clear that he is determined to provide the electricity access to his citizen and to do it in this new, modern, low-carbon way. So that's a lot of opportunity for our industry there as well. So to reap the benefits of the low-carbon transition, we must better position our companies, support the market uptake of our innovative technologies, create an environment that is conducive to attract investment, developed innovation ecosystems, which could be specialized, for example, in regional clusters, in energy, in mobility, and work much better in partnership with the industries and the cities and other facilitators to that effect. And I'm very eager and prepared to discuss with you how we can do it, how we will do it, and what would be the best way to proceed. As you know, we will come up before the end of the year with a new energy union, innovation, and competitiveness strategy. Next year, I will also continue to go and meet the actors on the ground in the smart and innovative cities, cooperatives, companies that make this transition visible and possible for the citizens to see how can we better support them. We are finalizing our energy efficiency package, which we want to present in the coming weeks. We are looking for the ways how we can use better energy efficiency technologies, how we can bring in all that new knowledge we accumulated over the past years and develop the concept not only of energy efficient but smart buildings. Together with Jyrki Katainen, we are looking at all aspects how we can also provide smart financing for the smart buildings. And talking about the money, these of course bring me to the challenge of investments. In fact, sustainable investment was a very central topic during the Paris COP21 summit, and I remember very well my meetings there with the business community. Later on, we've been discussing the same issues in New York with the UN Environment Program Director Achim Steiner. And what we agreed, what was the common conclusion from all this discussion, was that it was critical to minimize the risk of financial instability linked to the climate change and the transition to a low-carbon economy. And I told him that some EU member states are taking a lead when it comes to ensuring sustainable investment. Just one example for all of them. The Dutch Central Bank, for example, has updated its mission to not only safeguarding financial stability, but also contributing to sustainable prosperity in the Netherlands. And we see that many more banking houses taking same approach in Europe. In the energy sector alone, we are currently facing an investment gap of no less than 200 billion euros per year across the European Union. Connecting Europe's transport corridors, the famous TEN-T projects, require an additional investment of 200 billion euros until 2020. And I can continue with almost the same figure for the entire transport sector and the need to invest in research and bringing innovations to the market. And here we are facing the paradox, because it's quite paradoxical that the investment is not there given the tremendous potential in the low-carbon technologies. But I believe that this will change soon. But I think we need to do our utmost to make sure that this change happen faster rather than slower. And therefore, we in a commission have made its primary objective to create more stable and more favorable environment for investment. And we've been doing it through a wide range of tools we have at our disposal, which are starting to show tangible results. First and foremost, we are trying to stabilize the regulatory environment, because what we hear from the business community is regulatory stability, regulatory stability, regulatory stability. And we try to do it across our market, because we know that if the framework is not stable, if there are permanent changes, so this is the first factor which scares the investors away. Through our energy union legislative packages, we are inducing much needed predictability and consistency in the regulatory framework. And I just would like to inform you that we are working very hard in the European Commission to be able to say by the end of the year in December that if it comes to the legislative proposals linked with the Energy Union, we very much would like to tell you in December that mission is accomplished. That what we promised in the action plan will be almost all on the table. What we'll be working on in the next year would be a few proposals for the automotive industry. But at the same time, I know that by putting the legislative proposals on the table, the job is done. I would say we are just starting second and even more difficult phase to make sure that these proposals will be supported by the member states, by the European Parliament, and to make sure that the member states will do their homework and join us in this effort by preparing the national energy and climate plans, so we can finally see the regulatory stability in the form of these four very important frames. The global one represented by Paris Agreement, the European one represented by all the legislative proposals under the Energy Union umbrella, then very clear frame for each member state in the form of national energy and climate plans, and then of course each city, each region would develop their own sustainability plans in their own rules, how to make all these necessary changes happen in their concrete cities and the regions. Coming back to the investment. Second thing we did was that we've been looking for the ways how to unblock investment and how to channel them where they are needed. I'm sure that you discussed the first results of the Juncker Investment Fund. I think that we could be quite glad that in such a short period of time, if you compare how long does it take the usual proposal to be presented, to be adopted, and to be implemented. So I'm very glad to say that within 12 months, we managed to approve 290 projects. These projects are quite well geographically spread across the 26 member states, and the expectation is that they would trigger a total of investment value of almost 116 billion euros. And what is important for my remarks here, it's the fact that almost 50% of this investment go exactly to the areas which is very important for our project: research, development, energy, innovation, and the new promising technologies. We also been quite impressed how this fund was successful in attracting other sources of investment, which was one of the key objectives of presenting and working with this new fund, because 80% of the investment came from private and public investors outside of the EIB group. So I believe that here we are learning a lot about new innovative way of financing into the tapping of the potential of the private sector, and we would definitely use this experience to improve the performance of this fund in the future even better. We want to have it more user-friendly. We want to improve the possibility for blending. And I would also have one more suggestion for the works of Bruegel. Let's think together how we can tap even more into the potential of that piles of cash idling in our banks to support a low-carbon transition, to support the energy efficiency project. And I was particularly intrigued by that proposal coming from the White House when they are creating the fund which would bring clean energy savings for all Americans. I think that we do so much in this area that we can collectively think how we can use the abundance of cash in our banks and to channel it in such a useful investment for the future. Speaking about the future, I think that the better future would oblige us to challenge our traditional modus operandi and adjust to this ever-changing dynamic environment. And I started off by congratulating you, Guntram, for having this conference and having it organized in such a way that you really managed to touch the wide array of the issues without sacrificing its rigor in addressing them. And I think that this new horizontal systemic approach will really be one of the characteristic features of our new way of working. We need to build on synergies between fields, which is even more apparent in this new globalized and digitized economy. Because if you look what happened over the last 10 years, who would think that just 10 years ago that a few mobile apps can completely disrupt the tourism industry or public transport, that nanotechnology would have such an impact on medicine, that the 3D printing would completely change the way how the traditional manufacturing look like. And we are still learning about the potential pluses and the minuses of artificial intelligence and on the way how this would affect the organization of our society. Or what we can achieve through 3 and 5G internet, not only in the way how we're communicating with each other, but for example, how we drive our cars or how the cars would be driven by themselves. Therefore, I think it's very important for our work that we tear down the traditional silos. We did it in the European Commission. We see how important it was, how better environment for work it creates, how it allows the people to think more creatively, more disruptively, and how better in this interdisciplinary way we can face the global challenges. And therefore, I think it was not coincidence that the G20 leaders in Hangzhou have focused so much of their attention to the sustainable, innovative growth and industrial revolution. If you allow me to proceed to the conclusion by one very important statement, because if we talk about the energy union, the word energy is a little bit confusing some people, because they would think that it's a new name for the new EU energy policy. But I think in its essence it's about much more. It's about energy, but it's also about many other policy fields put together in a way that we would ensure that we address all the common challenges of these areas, like transport, innovation, agriculture, consumers, competition, climate action, industry, and of course, how to react to this new phenomenon when the consumers would not only be active or well-informed consumers when they want to become prosumers. And how to tackle these 5Ds I came up on when I was realizing how this new energy transformation is affected by more of a democratization of a production, by decentralization of energy generation, by decarbonization of our policies, by digitization of everything we do in the field of production and distribution of energy. It's of course about enhanced diversification of both our energy sources and their usage, and it's about more efficient heating, better cooling, low emission mobility. It's about storage and better link between the storage of energy facilities to the smart grids and electric vehicles. It's about real-time demand response. So what I want to say is that ultimately the energy union is about the modernization of our economy in a way that creates new markets, that it helps to create new business models, that it would lead to an innovation-driven jobs, growth, and new investment agenda in Europe. And of course, it's a major challenge that is radically impacting our lives as citizens, urban residents, commuters, workers, consumers, entrepreneurs, innovators, researchers, local actors, etc. And therefore, if you allow me, I would conclude by saying that this multifaceted vision of the society brings us back to the great work of Bruegel, after which your institution is named. As you know, he was a very gifted painter who was able to depict the complexity of the society, the many actors who interplay, the complex relations they have, and to magnificently display the overall societal picture. And as I understand, that is also what have collectively and creatively been happening here over the last 2 days. And I really would like to compliment you for excellent organization, for getting fantastic lineup of the speakers, great discussions, and very important conclusions for all the future debates on Europe. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much, Maros, for these very nice and flattering words, and really also for a very interesting speech that I think is shifting sort of the twist that we had around climate policies and energy policies for a long time. For a long time, climate policies arguably were seen as a cost to society. It is a cost to built-in technologies that would save carbon emissions and so on. Now you have put the emphasis in quite a different direction, namely, and let me stress 2 issues that I sort of heard you say very clearly. One is the potential for innovation. So we are leading, and the potential also to lead as Europe on a number of innovative fields. So we are leading, I think the number you gave was something like 40% or so of patents that are being held in Europe on green technologies, you see an opportunity there to become also a global leader of technology, if I understood you correctly. And I think the other dimension that you mentioned very clearly was the need for investment in the EU, and there is the link then to the macro dimension itself. The numbers you gave were in the order of magnitude 200 billion every year, I think two times 200 billion, something of that sort, which would actually make for a meaningful macroeconomic spending agenda that would actually have a macroeconomic effect in terms of growth, in terms of jobs, in terms of inflation. So let me push you a little bit on both points. So perhaps starting from the latter one, the investment one. I mean, why is this investment not happening or not yet happening to the extent we would like to see it? Is it the regulatory framework, the instability and the uncertainty about that? Is it the funding availabilities? Is it the fact that we are not looking united, and so private investors will hesitate to actually build European infrastructure projects? So what is behind this?
Thank you very much, Guntram, for both points. And I think you picked up the very, very crucial one, because all that potential I see in Europe not materialized would be a huge disappointment, which we cannot have in this fast, accelerating, globalized work. I think we in Europe are maybe affected a little bit more than other parts of the globe by that sudden realization that from one day to another, the whole European companies, all of us, we found ourselves on the global market. That suddenly the competition is very fierce. Suddenly big sectors of our industry and their production could be replaced from 1 month into another. And that if we want to remain the global leader, that we just have to act much faster, that we have to use all that potential we have in Europe and not be academic about it, but be very practical about it, be able to implement it, to commercialize it, to bring it to the market. Just a slight small detour. I had the last week the session with what is called new space industry. So these are the innovators who are working on the smaller satellites, who are venturing into the new space project as a medium-sized companies, and you have to be impressed what these people could accomplish. Many of them are entrepreneuring in the States, some of them in Europe. But what was such a key features for all of them who've been in that room was that we are all Europeans. And you would be surprised how many Europeans is working in these super high-tech fields because we have good universities, because we have talented people, and we just simply need to manage that talent much better than before. Why is it not happening? I mean, one of the, I think, reasons for all that discussions why the Europe is not performing as she should, I think is very much linked with insecurity. I would say insecurity in many aspects. I mean, instability on our borders, this sudden realization how difficult it is for our kids, that despite the fact that they have good universities, they speak several languages, they still have a problem on the labor market. The opportunities and challenges of the new technologies. Will be my job on the markets tomorrow or not? And then if you look at the latest barometer, we've been going through the slide at our last commission seminar. So there was one slide which was, I would say, particularly telling, because the pollster's been asking the Europeans if they believe that the worst is already behind us. And you see that the society is very much divided on that. So there is still this hesitation. Should I go for that project? Should I invest, or it's better, to be prudent, to proceed cautiously? That's one, I would say, very natural aspect. And second one is, again, if you want to be honest, is that we have seen in quite a few member states the decisions which have been very supportive of the new technologies. Let's be more concrete, speaking about investment in renewables. And then, mostly because of the crisis years, these decisions have been retroactively changed. And then, of course, there is nothing worse you can do to the regulatory stability, to the investment climate, because then, of course, the investors would think twice. So what I think we need here is, at first, to kind of be much better in reassuring and create and cementing our regulatory framework in a way that the investors would believe that this is now for real, this is happening. And I think therefore the Paris Agreement was so important, because now they see that it's not only European venture, this is a global development going in that direction. And second, I think very important thing where I still think we should explore all the possibilities is how to help to share the risks with the potential investors. We see how big demand is for this risk-sharing facility, Juncker Investment Fund. We've been discussing with Irki Katainen if we couldn't develop something more like that, some kind of crowd-in fund which would help to create new platforms to promote this type of the investment. So I would say that clear focus on the regulatory framework, which would be underpinned on the global level by the global agreement, but also by the national energy and climate plan. So they would see that it's not only European proposal, but it's supported by the global understanding and national action on the ground, and plus, of course, being much more creative if it comes to the risk sharing and creative financing.
Thank you. I think we can open up the debate, and I see already Georg has a question. Georg? And can you please raise your hand if you have a question?
Georg Zachmann from Bruegel. Politics is about prioritization to a large degree, so I would like to ask a question on whether we got the balance right, and or whether we should shift the balance of our policy attention in the framework of decarbonization. So a lot of attention has been put in the past 10 years on electricity decarbonization. We have seen an impressive rollout of renewables, and that continues. And being here in this museum, you wonder a bit that there are still the same cars that are standing here in the museum, driving across the city of Brussels and beyond. And I'm a bit worried about that because the car industry is, I just looked up some figures, is incredibly important for our industry. So in Germany, of German gross exports, 20% is cars, which is massive. So there would be a huge problem. In your country, Slovakia, is essentially the country which has the highest car production per capita in the world, with, I think, 170 cars per 1,000 inhabitants. So that would mean if the car industry runs into a problem with decarbonization, with shift coming from other countries moving faster than us, we would be really in trouble. Should we not try to shift the balance a bit towards this sector that is so crucial for our industry?
Oh, thank you very much, Georg, for that question. It's very much spot on. And when I was saying that, I'd love to say mission accomplished in December, that there will be still few pieces, few proposals upon which we'll be working also in the next year, and they will be the proposals focused exactly on the transport sector. What is, I think, very important to say about the European car industry? If we want to make sure that our car industry would be the best in the world, that they would remain global leaders, that we will be proud of the fact that European cars are the most energy efficient, cleanest, safest, coolest, I think we need to start moving very quickly. Why I'm saying this? Because I think, again, looking at the patents, European car manufacturers are #1 in the number of patents concerning combustion engines. But if it comes to the patents for electric cars, for batteries, and for all this new technology which is arriving, there we are not #1 anymore. I think I don't want to say that we are, of course, in some kind of desperate situation, but we need to realize where is the challenge and what would be the demand of the consumers of the future. I had one discussion with strategies from one leading company, car manufacturer in Europe, and he told me that based upon also his discussion with the mayors, and I can confirm it because I talk to mayor a lot, I mean, sooner or later, I would give it 1 decade, we will have a first mayor decree who would say, okay, you want to come in the center of my city only in a super clean car with autonomous driving, because I want to make sure that there is no air pollution and everybody follows the rules. They do drive 50 kilometers per hour, you stop at the cross points and you park where you're allowed to park. And he told me the good thing is that we already have the technology, including these autonomous driving qualities here in Europe. We need to have, of course, much better internet connection, well-working 5G, but also these strategies in our top industry are already thinking about these tendencies, which I believe would arrive rather sooner than later. So they need to overcome the current thinking and I would say current inertia. And what was for me such a warning on the wall was, of course, the Volkswagen scandal in the United States, which puts the European car industry in very bad light. And also the cartel fine we had to impose on the truck manufacturers. And when you talk to them, they would explain you that each truck is different, each truck is very specific, which is probably true, but they accept that in United States, Canada, and China, there are already the new emission standards and regulatory requirements for the truck industry. So I wouldn't like to be in the situation that the best trucks are exported to the States or China and the less performant trucks would stay here in Europe. I think that it's very important also for the car manufacturers to realize that they also have to use all that enormous innovation potential they have, all the talent which is working in the industry, and to shift the gear and to realize what is the next challenge for the industry, and this would clearly be demand, especially from the young generation, for clear cars, for car sharing, for carpooling, and of course for autonomous driving. Because who will grasp, I would say, the market, the technology first? There will be clean winners. I was also in Tesla factory, so of course you are very much impressed by the business model, by the splash this company made with this new business model and the excellent marketing they do. But at the same time, they've been very honest about explaining that if it comes to this mass manufacturing, I think we just simply have to learn a lot from Europeans. It's much different to produce, I don't know, 3,000, 30,000 or 300,000 cars. So I think we have our very strong competitive edge, but our car industry chiefs just would need to realize, and I believe they do, but to start to clearly develop this new thinking, how to make sure that our car industry will remain at the top of the global competition. Last thing I would say is that it would be absolutely inevitable if we want to achieve our climate goals, because to get to the minus 30% of the greenhouse gas emission in the non-ETS sector, we know how big potential is in the building sector. We know how challenging it is for agriculture. And of course, there are huge expectations that the transport industry would be that sector which would contribute significantly into this effort. Thank you.
Okay, Simone, and I can take one more question, but I cannot see. Can you please raise your hand if there's a question there? And any other question? Because last time I chaired from here, I was accused of not finding the right people. So please, there's a third one there. Okay. Simone, please.
So, Vice President Simone Tagliapietra from Bruegel. Considering that 75% of the European population lives in urban areas, it's clear that cities will be the key arenas for decarbonization. In this sense, I would like to ask you, what can the Commission do to accompany cities in this effort, in this challenge? Is there a room to do something more than the covenant of mayor best practice sharing format? Is there a role for enhancing smart financing for smart cities? Is your new proposal going to come up in the winter going to completely change the traditional approach? Do you have new tools in mind in this field?
Okay, thank you. There is a second question here.
Catherine Fiore, EU reporter. Very ambitious investment plans. The public sector, the private sector is going to be fully mobilised to reach the targets you've suggested. But the private sector have said that the public investment is very important for them. It's very reassuring to know that they're involved, and that's why the Juncker plan is working well in this area. But obviously, it's going to have to be bigger than that. But my question is this: member states are struggling to stay within their budgets as it stands. So they don't really have that much room. Well, some of them don't, not all of them, but some of them don't have much room for manoeuvre. And one MEP suggested to me that, well, they should stop, states should stop subsidizing the fossil fuel sector. This is one way that they could be, mobilize more funds. And the other suggestion, and it's maybe more for Guntram, I suppose, but in the UK, some economists have suggested that quantitative easing could be used for sort of a green quantitative easing, and this is a way to mobilise some investment. So I'd just like to know if you have any views on that.
Okay, there's a third question here.
Hello, Katrin Glastra from the Heinrich Böll Foundation. I'm here. Thank you very much for this impressive speech. I was a bit surprised to hear only towards the end of your very interesting remarks the role that you give to the citizens and to the prosumers. I was wondering how, especially given the point that you mentioned in the very beginning, the challenge of the public trust issue, I was wondering in how far you could maybe give an indication, how do you intend to bring the energy union also closer to the citizens by, I don't know, opening up cooperatives initiatives, by granting access to grids and so on? well knowing that, of course, it's a national competence, but what can the Commission do, because it has to do a bit more in that respect? Thank you.
Thank you very much for all three questions. The first question on cities. I think that here we definitely have to use to the maximum the potential of that positive energy which is coming from the cities and from the mayors. And if you ask why there is such a positive energy among the mayors for sustainable developments, because I think that they realized the first how important it is to go into that direction, because they are fully aware that, as you said, 75% of Europeans is living in the city. There is a highest concentration of traffic, including traffic jam. The biggest problem with the air pollutions. You have industry concentration around the cities. You have the issues with the public transportation. So if you really want to transform the cities, you have to embrace these new smart technologies and new approaches. And very often you see certain cautiousness, prudence on the level of the national government, but you see strong support for these new developments from mayors, because they know that they have support of the citizens for the change for the city. So I have seen quite a few cities where the cars are somehow pushed out of the centers, and more bikes, more path walks, more public transportation is bringing in. And usually this was at first perceived as, wow, this mayor cannot survive this approach, but in the end he was re-elected because this was proven very popular. They started a movement like giving cities back to the citizens, and therefore these policies have usually very strong support. In Europe, we've been very successful with the Covenant of Mayors. We have almost 7,000 mayors who are ready to work with the Commission to develop the sustainability plans. And we would like to replicate that success on the global level. This is what I already promised in the Paris conference, and this is what we are now working together on very intensely with Mike Bloomberg. We would like to make sure that as we have the EU Covenant of Mayors, that we would have such a regional covenants in all major regions, for Africa, for Asia, for China, for Latin America, so that I would say the similar cooperation, similar platforms, similar exchange of the best practices could take place on the regional, but also on the global level. What we would like to do more, we would like to create new platforms that encourage more cooperation, for example, in the field of public procurement. Because this is what I hear from the mayors. Of course, if I have to procure 20 electric or CNG buses, is much more expensive than when I agree with 3 or 4 cities and we are going to procure 200 buses. Of course, if I would like to develop the car sharing service for electric cars, I would like my citizens to be able to use them not only within the city, but to go to the neighboring city. So for that, of course, you need to develop the proper infrastructure. So what we want to do right now is to make sure that we have a proper structure in place, which we can also support financially, where we can advise the mayors how they can create the platforms to attract investment, like we have seen in Orpa de Calais, where 400 million euros been invested for energy efficiency projects from the Juncker Investment Fund, and also to listen to the mayors, what they believe would be the best, what they would need from us, and they have very good ideas. They are very precise in formulating their proposals, and what we need to make sure is that this flow of interactive ideas and proposals will be working even better than before. If it comes to the level of the investment, I personally can tell you is that I'm supporting all the thinking, all the reflections, all the creative solutions which would help us to use the current period where we see that, if I exaggerate a little bit, that if you borrow the money, you save on your loan, and to use that abundance of cash to support the progressive infrastructure. All what we need to do in the field of low carbon energy transition. All we can do for energy efficiency, all we can do for making sure that we can integrate renewables better, all we can do to make sure that finally we would have the internal energy markets which would not be hampered by the technical obstacles which usually are the lack of interconnecting capacities. But as you know, this is a much bigger debate, and we always have to find for the balanced solutions between budgetary responsibility and between promotion of the investment in the new promising infrastructure. I know that my colleague Tyson is discussing also with the Eurostat how we can reflect this positive investment into the infrastructure and using of the Juncker investment fund, especially on the city level, in a way that it would not have negative repercussions on the assessment of stability and the growth pact. And I think that this debate is still going to take place. I mean, it's a discussion: should we reform the stability on the growth pact? Should we prepare the new one? Because over the years it became so complex that it's not easy to grasp it. It's very difficult to explain it. And I think that today we are facing different challenges than we've been facing in the midst of this very dire economic crisis. So this debate is still on, and I think will be on until we find the best solutions. And concerning the cities and the citizens, I repeat very often, and I would like to assure you that I'm absolutely convinced of it, that we cannot build energy union here in Brussels. That without support of the citizens, we will not build it in our member states and in our cities. And that this public awareness is absolutely crucial, because if we want to achieve this transformation, this modernization of our industry, we definitely need to have the citizens on board. On top of it, I would say we need to have active, well-informed consumers on board, that they know what are their rights, that they know that if they are not happy with the quality of the service or price of the energy, they can switch the supplier, that they would have a possibility to produce and store the energy if they decided to do so, and that the incumbents shouldn't create different kind of obstacles to prevent them from doing exactly this. So this is something what we are going to support. You will see a lot of what I'm explaining right now reflected in a proper legislative language when we present the new electricity market design. And on top of it, we are also trying to cover as much as we can in respect of the principle of subsidiarity, also the issue of energy poverty. I think it's really unacceptable that we have 15 million Europeans who have to decide if they pay for energy bill or buy the food for the family. That we have hundreds of thousands of Europeans who are just switched off from electricity supply without any warning. And you know that without electricity, it's not only that your fridge is not working, your kids cannot study, but it's simply not possible to be in such a situation. So we think that we should really introduce much more of the consumer protection in this field. And the last thing I would mention, which affects directly the citizens, we want to start what I hope would become such an energy efficiency renovation wave across the Europe, because that would be very tangible for those who are living in these renovated houses. They pay less for the energy so they can save, but it would be very important also for all local SMEs, because I'm sure that it would be not some kind of multinational big corporations who will install these new technologies, better windows or put more isolations. It would be local companies, SMEs, local workers who would do this job. So I hope that by this we can actually cater for both better consumer satisfaction and more job creation here in Europe. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Commission Vice President Šefčovič. It was really great to have you here and for you to give the final concluding speech here at our Bruegel Annual Meeting. I think it is time to conclude our annual meeting, to thank all of you for participating. And let me also give 1 second to thank our team that really has done an outstanding job in putting it all together. Giuseppe and all the others, thank you so much. And thank you again, Commission Vice President.